Security Minister Tom Tugendhat says the government he's in needs to up the pace on defence spending.
It comes after the budget failed to boost spending on the military and is an unusual comment on the government from a sitting minister. Tom Tugendhat joins us now. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Did the Defence Department fail effectively to lobby the Chancellor in advance of the budget?
No, what the Chancellor did was he set out an agenda for boosting economic growth, and as we all know, that's the fundamental underpinning of our security, to make sure that we've got the wherewithal to pay for what we need. But it's also true that economic growth and prosperity are underpinned by security. And, I make no apology. We have to increase defence spending. That is absolutely clear. And that's why I'm so pleased that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has set the path to 2.5% as soon as possible, because what he's recognising, what we're all recognising, is the reality that autocracies around the world are challenging us, challenging our allies, and leaving us less safe. You don't need me to tell you about Russia and Ukraine. We've all seen it, and we all know that standing with the Ukrainian people is about defending ourselves against Russian aggression. And you don't need me to tell you about the violence that we're seeing emerging out of Tehran. Look, over the last few years, we've seen Iranian proxies and Iranian militias leading attacks against many people around the world, and we've got to stand up.
Yeah, but the thing is that you yourself are critical of the amount of money being spent on defence.
Supportive is what you're saying. What you're saying is that I've explained the context, which is exactly what ministers have to do, explain the context to the British people as to why we have to spend this increased amount of public money on our defence. It's absolutely essential that we understand the wider context, the nature of the changes that we're living through and why we need to make these investments.
But you said it needs to be done at greater pace. It's not happening quickly enough, considering the litany of threats you've just outlined, in your own words.
Well, this is exactly why I'm so supportive of what Jeremy's doing in making sure we boost growth, because we can't get the greater pace unless we get the boost in growth. So we get the greater pace from the boost in growth. We see that feeding through to economic prosperity across the country, and we see that feeding through into the pledge that we've already made of 2.5% as soon as possible. And I think that's really important.
But Mr.
And I'm making no apology for arguing for an increase in defence spending.
In your Sun article in July 2022, you said, last month the government promised to increase spending to 2.5% of GDP. This is not enough, you said. A year ago on this programme, I read out this tweet to you. The truth is we don't spend enough on the defence of our country, you said. As PM, I would commit 3% of GDP to defence spending. And I asked you why you had deleted that tweet, and you couldn't remember why. The truth is, like an old rock star, back to your old tunes, you've now written an article saying 2.5% isn't enough. The thing which is striking is if you think it's not enough, why are you putting up with the Chancellor's Exchequer carrying on doing something that you say isn't good enough?
Ed, you read the article. If you read a couple of paragraphs down, you'll see that's on defence and intelligence. And as you know, details matter. After all, you were in the Treasury, you were in the government that failed to spend £38 billion on defence and left us with a black hole.
As PM, I would commit 3% of GDP to
I know you're speaking for the Labour Party.
Spending.
I do understand that you speak for the Labour Party.
I'm actually just reading out. I'm actually reading out your words. I'm reading out your article and your tweet in which you say 2.5% on defence spending is not enough. Don't wriggle out of it. Just own what you say.
Ed, we're aiming to spend 2.5% as soon as possible, and I think that's the right ambition.
You said it's not enough.
We need to do that first, and then we need to look at the challenges that we face and see where we get to on that. We also need to invest in intelligence and security. Did Downing Street clear your article last week in advance? Ed, did you have to clear everything through Labour? You probably did actually have to clear everything through Peter Mandelson, didn't you? That's probably how your Labour Party worked, where everything was so tightly controlled. What we do...
Yeah, but the thing is, we weren't talking about me, we were talking about you. Did you clear your article last week with Downing Street? We
trust ministers to argue government policy and to make the context available to people so we understand why we're spending all this money. This is public money, Ed.
So you didn't clear it?
This is public money that we need to spend on keeping ourselves safe, because we've seen autocracies around the world challenging us in new and different ways. And so it's absolutely right that I make that argument, because we have to increase defence spending, because we have to keep the British people safe. And that's exactly the argument that I've made and that Rishi Sunak has supported through his commitment to 2.5%.
There we will leave it. Tom Tugendhat, Security Minister. Thanks very much indeed.